Welcome to the Sports Perspective, your number one destination for untold stories about the sports world. All right, everybody, welcome back. Episode 8 of the Sports Perspective. Today's another huge one. I'm being joined by the mystery man behind the Twitter account, ItzLamarSZN, absolute titan of the sports media industry. Personally, I'm excited to learn a thing or two today. I'm sure all of you will be excited too. It's going to be super informational about the business, about media, about building yourself a presence. So I'm ready to go. Mr. Season, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good today. It's been great out here.
Love to hear it. So the first thing we need to address, just for my viewers, is this episode does look a little different than other episodes I've done in the past. Um, I said mystery man at the start for a reason. Obviously, you've elected to hide your face. Would you care to explain to the viewers why this was the best decision for you?
Yes, because I run it on Twitter. I can't be risking anything. Like I don't really care like that, but like I can't be risking anything. I've seen some other people on Twitter. They'll get flamed. There's this one guy, Hood Genius. He got really big and like he gained like hundreds of thousands. Like he was big, but like I knew him because he was a Bucks account and he started just gaining like massive followers. And then he showed his face one time. Yeah, it went downhill. He sold the account. He has a new account and everything. It was crazy. So I just ain't risking anything like that.
Yeah, it can be a cold world out there. You know, a lot of people on social media able to hide behind their keyboard. They get pretty ruthless. But for the viewers out there that were looking for a visual experience, don't you worry. As you can tell, the great interns that you met that I talked to last episode cooked up a great graphics package just for this episode. So you at least have a little something to look at. But without further ado, let's get straight into the interview. So I think I want to start as broad as possible, and then we'll hone in a little bit. So talk to me about how you got into Twitter, and when did you decide this was going to be a big thing? Because I think there's a big difference between like when you start something and realize, oh, this is kind of fun, and then you're like, oh, this is kind of serious.
Okay, so um it was years ago. There's a few times I tried to start a sports Twitter account because I saw some other people, they made their own Twitter accounts and like they would like troll people and stuff. I thought that was pretty funny. I remember I made this like one I made one LeBron one where I would just praise LeBron a whole bunch, but I never got any traction. I kind of just stopped after a week, and then I did another one. Um, I think it's like Damian Lillard or something. I don't remember. It was like Damian Lillard and like Paul George or something. And I would like just like troll about stuff, but again, I would just stop it. But then when I really started to do it, it was like probably a year after like those accounts. One of my friends, he started his own sports account and he showed me. I was like, you know what? It might be fun if I were to like interact with him and like we just go on and like troll other people and whatever. So you know what? I was like, I'm gonna just start it, and then like I did it more for than a week. I kept doing it and kept doing it, and then like I would start like it'd start gaining traction. It would motivate me to keep going, and then eventually I've been doing it for 4.5 years about I think.
That's very impressive. And there are a lot of hallmarks in my mind that make like it's Lamar season, it's Lamar season. But I think the first one is very obvious, and that is, this account's worshiping of Lamar Jackson. So talk to me about why you picked Lamar Jackson as this player to follow for this account, because I'm sure a lot of thought must have went into that.
Yeah, so I had two options. It was going to be between Lamar Jackson or Tua Tagovailoa, and the main reason is because, well, the difference between this account and the other accounts was, I mean, football is my favorite sport personally, right? but I kept making basketball accounts. Even though I do really like basketball, I don't like basketball as much. And even though, yeah, I'm a Packers fan, but I just want to pick somebody like I want to pick somebody different, like because then I did Lamar because I like Lamar more than Tua. I still do. He's more fun to play with. More fun to play with, more fun to watch than Tua. And I just thought it would just be easier. Also, another reason was literally just because the colors. Purple's my favorite color, so like the branding could be purple instead of being like teal and orange. That was another reason that went into it.
That's very interesting. So you touched upon it briefly, being a Packers fan. Why did you want to steer away from Aaron Rodgers in the first place? Is it because he was already like a well-established, older superstar?
Partially, yeah, but I also thought it would be more interesting if because I already follow like on my personal accounts, I already follow other Packers accounts and like I see them. I thought it would be more fun if I steered into like different fan bases and see what they're about, but also because Rodgers at the time he was getting older, Lamar's a lot younger, and like Rodgers could have easily become washed anytime soon. Well, yeah, Lamar he's going to enter his prime. I thought it'd be one more fun to brand myself as a player following somebody that like will be a top player for a lot longer than a top player that's been a top player for super long, but eventually is going to not be as good, not be as fun to watch.
Now you talked about your other option being Tua, and I feel like, sitting here in 2026, the answer might be kind of clear. But do you feel like you made the right choice between Lamar Jackson and Tua?
Yeah, I think so because I think so because it definitely I don't know. I think I did. I think I did just because um at least for me it was funnier because I'm sure we'll get more into this later. People would be like, "Oh, you're a fake Ravens," because I would still talk about Tua. I still talked about both of them, but a lot of my Tua tweets they would get bigger than most of my Lamar tweets or whatever, and people would be like, "Oh, you're a fake Ravens fan. Oh, you're a Miami boy, whatever." So I think it was worth it because it's funny just for that alone, and it's allowed me to just see a lot of hilarious stuff and then tweet like hilarious stuff at other people. So yeah, I would say I made the right choice.
Now, what's very interesting is you bring up how you still made a lot of tweets about Tua and the Dolphins. You've definitely um, more than just a Lamar account, despite being it's Lamar's season. But one interesting crossroads that's, come up, in my opinion, I think, is Tua's now on the Falcons. So where do you draw the line and like decide between, following Tua to the Falcons and maybe getting some more Falcons posts in there or continuing to post about the Dolphins because that's what you've been doing?
I'm still gonna tweet about Tua. I just feel like I have to. Plus, also, he's still one of my favorite players. Um, yeah, I will tweet about the Dolphins because they do have Malik Willis, and I have been a fan of Malik Willis. You can check the tweets. I've been following him since he got drafted, or actually before he got drafted. I don't know if I'll tweet about because like there's gonna be a whole bunch of stuff, and like it's not even like oh you can't tweet or whatever. No, obviously tweeting is easy. That's not the hard. It's like, watching all of the games. Like I'm not going to be watching 4 football games a week. Like it's already hard enough to even watch 3 football games a week. I'll probably try to do it based on what's more interesting matchups. Like if it's the Falcons versus, like a well, who I don't know who they play. I think they play the Ravens this year. Or no, they might play the Steelers. I think they play the Ravens. I don't know, but I'll be picking whoever's the most interesting matchup in my eyes. Like what's the better game to watch, you know? I mean, if they get blown out, if one team gets blown out, I might swap what to watch the other one or whatever. I don't know. It's gonna be a lot, but I mean, I'm hoping to tweet a lot about Tua because I do think they're gonna be pretty good this year. They have a lot of weapons on that offense. The Dolphins, on the other hand, mm, currently they don't really have a receiver room, and I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. But I do want to try to talk about them as much as possible, both Malik Willis and Tua.
Now you touched upon something briefly there that I definitely want to talk about. And that's like having to watch, 3 games a week, 4 games a week. Talk to me about like the research that goes into running It's Lamar season, staying on top of football. Because I think there are definitely a lot of people out there that are inauthentic, that will go and make an account or like a podcast or have a media presence that really have no idea what they're talking about. You even see people on ESPN commenting on games that they definitely did not watch. So talk to me about your research process and how important it is to you to make sure what you post is like authentic to what you've seen.
So, first biggest thing is obviously going to be watching the games, paying attention to what happens. That's going to be one thing. But if I do miss a game, because I'll still like try to tweet about stuff. If it's like a Dolphins game, let's say I'm gonna go to like probably Dolphin fans I follow, or it might just appear on the timeline because obviously it's not realistic to watch 17 games for 3 different teams, even though it's gonna be less because obviously there's gonna like this year I know the Ravens played the Dolphins and whatever. Um, but otherwise, sometimes I might just not like if I don't like feel like I know enough about it, like because there's like some stats like you can see, but like they won't always tell the full story. Um, Otherwise, I'll try to definitely like watch clips like on specifically on Twitter. Like if there's like a certain player I want to search up, I'll try to search up their name and then go like latest. And like I'll watch the plays for myself because I do agree there are some people like they'll just like extreme like exclusively look at the box score, and I try not to do that. I don't like doing that. But sometimes like if I have a busy week, I'm just not able to like watch because there was a few times this past season. Like I didn't really like tweet much about football because I just wasn't able to like watch the games, or I was only able to like watch one, maybe 2 games or whatever. But and then for other teams, so like let's say like the Jaguars, like I don't really watch the Jaguars. I'll definitely try the um well obviously look at all the box scores, but sometimes I might go on YouTube, watch the highlights. It won't give me the full story. I won't fully commentate on it, but I definitely want to know like what's going around the league. Like I want to be able to know about as much of the league as possible, even though it's not realistic. I want to try to do that, but I'll mostly only commentate on stuff that I have watched. But it also does help with 3 teams. Um, they're going to be playing different divisions. I'll at least see most of the teams once, and then obviously there will be some primetime games that I'll watch like in the beginning of the season. Beginning of the season is not the best example because I guess they're going to be different later in the season. But I guess like something maybe like Thanksgiving, see what the Cowboys how they're doing. Obviously, I'll see the Lions a couple times a year, but yeah, it's just basically watch as much football and then just like try to garner other information from sources I trust.
That's definitely some great insight into, the sports media sphere as a whole and being authentic. I also think it's really important to try and catch as much as you can based on what you're talking about. You talk about, watching your 3 games a week, um, sometimes 4 games a week, or, depending situationally. One other team that you do talk about a lot that I definitely wanted to touch on a little bit here is the Chargers. So I think I want to start at the tip of the iceberg and address your situation with Justin Herbert.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I definitely do exaggerate a lot of this stuff about Justin Herbert. Um, I mean, a lot of it initially started just because of Tua versus Herbert comparisons, because they were in the same draft class. I believe Tua was picked fourth and Herbert was picked fifth. It might have been sixth. But yeah, a lot of that just like stems from me like talking about Tua, and then Charger fans, they would come in and try to thrash on Tua. And I was like, I'll play and I'll argue. I'm gonna support my guy. And I mean, there's been some toxic Charger fans. So like, the more toxic they get, the more trolling I'll do. I mean, I do think like in all honesty, some of the previous years, I don't think Herbert was that good of a QB. I think a lot of people, I mean, as Acho said it, his social media QB, like they would only pay attention to his highlights. But then when I would watch him, I remember this one game a few years ago, it was the Cowboys game. The Chargers, they were in position. They were able to go and score a game-winning drive, and then I felt it. I was watching it because I think it was Monday Night Football. I was like, here comes the interception. Bro, 3 seconds later, he throws an interception. Oh, I was dying of laughter. But in all honesty, now, I mean, yeah, he is a decent QB. I don't think he's top five or top three or top one, like some people I know, some Charger fans I know. But yeah, a lot of it is just like, it's just Tua versus I got to play into the rivalry. It's also fun for me because then, the 17 Charger fans, as I like to say, they'll get upset, and sometimes they'll just go back and forth. And then sometimes there'll be other Dolphin fans, they'll be agreeing with me, and then some other Charger fans, they'll disagree with them, and then they'll just go in arguments. It's just crazy. It's crazy. But to sum it up, yeah, it just stemmed from Tua versus Herbert comparisons because they're in the same draft class.
Now, there's something you brought up there, the 17 Charger fans. And I want to ask where this joke came from because it's been so persistent on your page, mentioned in multiple tweets, the 17 Charger fans. I think one of the funniest ones I saw was um, me if, dunking on the 17 Charger fans was an Olympic sport. And it's a picture of Simone Biles with all of her medals. So, is there like a thought process that goes into deciding, what, there's 17 Charger fans and I'm going to run this joke into the ground? Or is it something that just happened that you continue to follow through with over, the years?
In all honesty, it's only because I've counted 17 Charger fans on Twitter. No, I'm just playing. Um, the main reason is just because the Chargers, they're known to not really have a huge fan base. They're kind of like one of the laughing stocks for sports teams in America for just not having a very big fan base. So I was just like, there's only some because like 17, I don't know, it's an odd number. It's a low number, but it's an odd number. It's just like it's just I kind of just chose it because I thought it was funny. But then also another thing I do want to add on is I mean she probably is a real Charger fan, probably because she did move there, but there is that one fan. It might have been that same Cowboys game. It might have been. I don't know. It might have been because I know it was a primetime game at least. But there's the one lady with the glasses, and people were saying she was a industry plant charger fan. That was hilarious because people. I mean, I kind of felt bad for her because like she got a lot more. Because realistically, she was just a real fan. Um, so I didn't really say too much about her. I think I made like one tweet, but not to make fun of her, just to make fun of the other Charger fans that I be uh interacting with a lot. But I thought that was also just like hilarious, like because I wasn't even the person that started. Obviously, that was just other people. Industry plant Charger fan. That was hilarious. But no, it was just a random number I came up with. I thought it was funny.
So what's interesting about this is, you bring up the 17 Charger fans, and I do feel like it's a pretty well-known fact that the Chargers really don't have a lot of fans. I mean, you'll see, their home games, they're not really packed out. Whenever they play the Rams, there's always more Rams fans in attendance. But your posts about the Chargers always seem to do very well. Do you think that's the Chargers having a small but very vocal fan base? Or do you think a lot of people, from the outside looking in, just enjoy dunking on the Chargers as much as you do?
Um, I think it's kind of both, but if I had to lean more, I would say it's probably just dunking on them, to be honest, especially when you look at the division they play in. The Chiefs, obviously, they have a huge fan base, especially over the last decade. Um, you have the Raiders, they've always been one of the biggest fan bases. And then you have the Broncos. I don't think they're as big as the other two, but they're still big. And then also they play in California, so then you're gonna have the Rams fans. I mean, especially when they play in the same stadium. Then you're gonna have the who's the other California team? I guess um who is it? The 49ers. That's who it is. They're a pretty big fan base. So I just think it's mostly because they play in the division with very popular uh fan bases, and then they also play in a state with other big fan bases. So I just think it's where they're located at, to be honest. That's where I think. And it just stems all the other fans in. And then obviously you're gonna have the Dolphin fans just because of the Herbert and Tua stuff. And I already have a lot of Dolphin fans that follow me. So I just think it just all comes together and they all want dunk on the Chargers just as much as I do.
Just a perfect storm of Chargers hate. Um, so I think my next question is sort of following that rabbit hole because we've talked about how you talk about like the Ravens and the Dolphins positively, and then obviously there's this great line of Chargers hate. But so my question for you now, following that, is aside from the Chargers fans, probably the next big fan base that you've gone to war with has been the Bills fans. And now this is one I also personally feel very passionately about. I believe I've gone on air before, both on the play-by-play and then on the Across the Board podcast hosted by Jack Winans, who was also a guest on this show. Um, I believe I've called Josh Allen a fraud and a playoff choker personally. So talk to me about your ongoing battle with the Bills fans. Did it stem from your talks about Josh Allen, and how has it evolved past that?
Um, so it started because well, there's two big reasons. There's going to be the Ravens, and Lamar and Josh Allen. They get compared a lot because the past few years they've been consistently the two of like the top three quarterbacks, sometimes even the top two quarterbacks. And I tweet about Lamar. I say he's the best quarterback in the league. I still believe he's the best quarterback in the league. So I believe it stems partially from that, but then it also stems from I talk about the Dolphins. I talk about Tua, and they're obviously division rivals. So those two things, it just kind of, it just multiplies it, And my experience with the Bills fans, I mean, some of them are cool. I actually do have a decent amount of Bills followers, surprisingly. Like sometimes I'll just see people like they'll reply to me and then it'll say they have like a Bills profile picture. And I'll be like, dang, they follow me. But hold on. So I'm sorry to ask this. What was the full question? I thought there was a second part.
Yeah, so my question was, where does this war with the Bills fans stem from? With my impression being it comes from Josh Allen. And then, like, what has your impression of the Bills fans been? And even on top of that, we can go, like, how has this evolved from your initial, just not necessarily disdain for Josh Allen, but your opposition of Josh Allen because of your support of Lamar and the Dolphins. Because I believe that same Simone Biles post talking about the 17 Chargers fans also talks about the Bills.
Oh yeah, yeah, no, there's some Bills fans. They just okay, like half of them are good, half of them are decent, but then like the other half is just like some of them are just like toxic for like no reason. But it's also just fun to get in it with them, especially when it comes more to Lamar, because I do truly believe Lamar is the best quarterback in the league. I mean, that 1 year with 2024, that is ridiculous that Allen robbed him of an MVP because he didn't have an MVP. But yeah, initially when I started the account, I didn't really have anything against the Bills. Um, Josh Allen, I don't know. I don't really have anything against him. I know I say some stuff about him, like I've made some comparison tweets. I mean, I think it's more just funny because of the Bills. I don't think it's the same thing as like Herbert because um I don't think Bills fans are nearly, I'm not saying all of them, but I don't think the toxic ones are nearly as toxic as some of the Charger fans. Um, but I mean, I do have respect for Josh Allen. He is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. But yeah, I do think mostly just stems from being a Lamar fan and then talking about Tua and the Dolphins a lot. So they're just naturally going to come in my presence and I'll just be interacting with them. I'll have to debate them, you know.
And they got to get dunked on, same as the Chargers fans. Now, this is going to be a wraparound question to bring us back to more Bills talk, I suppose. But in order to get there, I need to ask you about in 2024, you made a post called The Truth, and you told your audience that in actuality, you're a Wisconsin sports fan. So, coming from this place where, you started the account as a Ravens fan, and then a lot of people are accusing you of being, a fake Ravens fan and actually being a Dolphins fan, and then it comes out of left field that in actuality, you're a Packers fan. What went into the decision to reveal the truth to this audience? And what would you say the reaction to that was like?
Um, the main reason was, well, um, sorry.
No
The main
worries.
reason, the main reason was because I it kind of felt a little inauthentic, like, and I like all my followers, I guess, but like I mean, like the ones that actually like interact with me, like they're obviously like bot accounts and whatever, or like just people that I don't see. But I'll still shout them out even though I don't like I'll only see them on the following list or whatever. But the main reason is because of authenticity. I just felt unnatural sometimes, and like I felt like I couldn't be like I wasn't being fully honest with everybody. Um, that was part of the reason, but also it's like at that time I had like Ravens, Brewers, Bucks, Penguins. I mean, I felt like some people they could have figured out that I was a Wisconsin sports because like why do I root for the Brewers? Like that doesn't make sense. And Wisconsin doesn't have a hockey team, and like the Penguins, like that's a pretty popular pick. Just in general, if like your state or city doesn't have a sports team, and then the reaction to it, yeah, that was hilarious. I mean, a lot of people, they were supportive. Um, it was cool. Like, I mean, it's not that big of a deal, but they're like, oh yeah, you're a Packers fan. That's cold, whatever. But then on the other side, I didn't realize it was gonna be like that. I didn't realize how many people wouldn't believe me, like Charger fans or Bills fans, or just any other person that doesn't really like me. I mean, some people they still don't believe I'm a Packers fan, which I think is hilarious. I mean, I've tried to argue with them. It was hilarious. Like, obviously, like, why am I defending this? But yeah, a lot of people are like, "Oh, you made this fake story to deflect uh that you're actually a Dolphins fan." And in my mind, I'm just like, "Bro, what do you like this isn't like politics or this is a sports team. This is football. Like what are you talking about?" But yeah, that was hilarious. I do think it's going to be more like people they'll say oh, you have three football teams in your bio or whatever, which I mean, I think is always hilarious. I mean, I don't be like sometimes I'll respond to them if I feel like it, sometimes I won't. But I think this season will be even more hilarious because I did say if like wherever Tua goes to, unless it wasn't the Vikings, because I hate the Vikings. But when he went to the Falcons, I'm like, bro, I gotta put in my bio because imagine people saying, "Oh, you have four sports teams in your bio." Yeah, like some people they just can't accept it. Like they just don't accept it. It doesn't matter what I say, what I approve. It doesn't matter if I literally post me going to a Brewers game or a Bucks game. It doesn't matter. They'll think like, oh, you asked somebody for that, or oh, you just found out. I'm like, I don't know. I think it's hilarious. The reaction was hilarious. It went better than I expected. Was kind of worried. I thought some people might have been mad, but obviously they're not going to be. Most people aren't like that. Why would they care about what sports team? It's just a sports team. It ain't all that deep, but some other people they think it's deep. They have these conspiracy theories on me. Um, they think I'm trying to deflect being a Miami sports fan or whatever. But I don't really care. I think it's hilarious. I embrace it. Sometimes I'll play into it.
That actually hits like the point of this show very well. I know I talked about it in the first episode and a couple episodes following, but like my desire to start the sports perspective was really to find, what unites people around sports and what makes sports so great. And so for you to be able to say, "Oh, hey guys, I know I've been a Lamar account for all these years, but I'm actually a Packers fan." And nobody took it that seriously for the most part, I think is both pretty important and pretty great because at the end of the day, sports are sports, like you said, it's not politics or anything. But so I guess my question following that um, is back to the Bills, which I wanted to bring up, the Packers before that. You had this post go pretty viral comparing the 2025 stats of, MVP candidate Josh Allen and Aaron Rodgers, who really wasn't talked about at all. Now, granted, Aaron Rodgers' team wasn't great in 2025, but so my question for you is how do you think narratives impact award getting? And like, how frustrating is that for someone like you who, in all sports, if you're a Rodgers fan, because of narratives, Rodgers has not necessarily gotten the credit he's due. Or even when we look at the Milwaukee Bucks, your Milwaukee Bucks, Giannis doesn't get the credit he's due, also because of storylines. They talk about, how he is just going to leave the Bucks all the time. So being like a small market sports fan, how important is it for you on It's Lamar season to try and set those narratives straight and talk about, how some of these other people are doing comparatively to just the three or four guys that bigger media is looking at?
Um, Sorry, I lost my train. Hold on. Could you repeat the question?
Yeah.
Sorry.
In short, the question is, it's based off that post you made about Aaron Rodgers and Josh Allen that did incredibly well.
Yeah.
How important is it for you to sort of break narratives like that, where Josh Allen's had this MVP narrative for a couple years, and then, Aaron Rodgers hasn't really been in any sort of discussions like that, in part due to his team, but in other part just due to storylines that the media has built and how the media reacts to Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, I think it's important because, some of these people, especially during that season, Dan Orlovsky, whatever his last name is, they make up these stupid narratives. Like that one was like, oh, Josh Allen, he doesn't really have much help. Whatever, even though he has James Cook, he had a decent offensive line, he had good defense. Um, yeah, his receivers weren't like top tier, but also when you compare it to Lamar, bro, Lamar's top receiver. I mean, we could argue Isaiah Likely. We could argue that. Probably Zay Flowers. I think it's kind of dumb. I don't like that. And then they also, I remember that year they tried. Oh well, the Bills, they weren't expected to do good in the preseason. I think that's dumb. Why do preseason odds matter? Why that doesn't matter. Preseason odds are always wrong. You look at the NFL historically, the last you can go so many years back. There's always going to be like three, four, five new division winners. I don't like narratives like that. It just makes me mad, especially when it's like the help stuff. Like, oh, this guy has that guy, but then this guy, well, he has that guy, so that guy isn't as good. It just upsets me because I think what's important is one, you gotta look at performances. I think that's what we should be basing off seasons. I always look at, especially when it comes to MVP talks, MVP performances. Like, did they play like the MVP? Did they play like the best player? Like, if you are watching, like, did they make those plays, those critical plays? Did they make the big time plays? And when we talk about that season, I remember there's some games. Allen had some bad games. He had like I think he had a game where he had like three interceptions or two interceptions against the Patriots. I know there's that one game in December they lost to the Patriots, or it might have been a close game, but I'm pretty sure they lost because I remember watching. I was like, oh yeah, there's no way you can argue this. And then it makes me even more upset when they try to be like, oh, this player beat this player, so it means this player is better than that player, even though it's a team sport. And sometimes these people they try to be like they try to like, oh, they'll do it sometimes, but sometimes they won't. Like that season, that was Sunday Night Football. The Ravens they beat the Bills pretty easily, and Lamar played like an absolute MVP. And then I think when you look at the entirety of that season, Lamar had multiple like MVP performances almost every game. Yeah, Josh Allen, he had some great MVP performances. I think he had the one game where he had like a receiving touchdown, rushing touchdown, and passing touchdown. That's incredible, but there's just certain narratives, especially when it comes to like discrediting players because they have that player. Like you talk about Tua. I know you didn't bring up Tua, but when people talk about Tua for years, the narrative is like, oh, he's only good because he has Tyreek Hill, he has Jalen Waddle. I just think that's dumb because you can easily go the other way. Well, I can say, well, Jalen Waddle, he's only good because of Tua. And Tyreek's only been good because, well, he had Mahomes and then he had Tua. I the narratives make me upset. I wish people would just like I might be guilty of it myself, like choking narratives with like Herbert, but at least I have evidence. He had the one game he was up 27-0 against the Jaguars. They lost like 33-30 or something. He scored 3 points after being up 27-0. And then he had the one game I believe he was against Houston. He threw 4 interceptions. And then this past year, he got to play the Patriots. So like team way better than their record, and he's still lost. But I won't blame that as much on Herbert because Patriots, their defense, they were pretty good. But Herbert did have some bad throws. He did miss some throws, but I'm not gonna go against that. But at least I have like like I have an actual narrative. But when people try to just use players to discredit like the roster or the preseason expectations that are completely irrelevant. Like, why are we talking about the preseason? We're in week 13. The preseason, that's long gone. But yeah, I do think it is important to destroy narratives. And with that tweet specifically, the reason I did it was because Josh Allen and Bills fans, they were trying to ignore Lamar's rushing stats, and Lamar had a great rushing year that year. And another reason I made is because I noticed one of the stats. I think it's like passing touchdowns. I'm like, hold up, let me look at this real quick. I want to see what because I'm pretty sure Rodgers he might have some pretty similar completion percentage or something. So that was the whole point of that tweet. And then you see in the replies, it's like, well, you're being unfair. Well, yeah, I am being unfair because you're also being unfair to my guy. So yeah, I'm gonna tweet. Obviously, Josh Allen is better. But I'm gonna make it look like Aaron Rodgers was almost just as good as Josh Allen. You're MVP this year because I'm going to take out a lot of context and I'm only going to use 4 or 5 stats, whatever I did.
It's a great way to look at it and, destroy the narratives. I feel like that's very important in sports when they've been so dominant recently. But switching gears a little bit, there is one more thing I wanted to ask you. Back before you revealed yourself as a Wisconsin sports fan, when you were asked about like what teams you were a fan of outside of football, you said you were a Lakers fan. And now you said that was because you'll go wherever LeBron goes. But I think I know the real answer. And I think you're just a purple and gold guy, right? I mean, I know guys that will pick their teams just because of the colors. Like I know people that like blue and orange, so they're a Thunder or Broncos fan or whatever, or like, they like blue and white, so they're like a Mavericks fan, this and that. So talk to me about the real reason why you decided to pick the Lakers.
Yeah, when I picked the Lakers, which is yeah, partially it was because you have the Ravens, you'd have LeBron. You even saw the image, like you might have seen the first tweet if you really dug through. Um, yeah, like it was just like purple and gold, but also because I am a LeBron fan. LeBron is one of my favorite basketball players, one of my favorite just athletes in general. I absolutely love LeBron. He's the king. He's the goat. That was and then also because LeBron's always relevant. I thought it'd be easy. Plus, especially when I do be watching LeBron at that time. I thought it was easy. But then I do know. I remember I did kind of switch the teams because I was really like a lot of trolling um, I said to say I was a Sixers fan because during that time the Lakers they were doing that. I'm like, oh, this team they're selling LeBron, whatever. It was just all trolls, and then eventually I'm like, like I don't even watch like I do like Embiid a lot, even though I know a lot of people don't like him. Um, I was just kind of like trolling with the other teams, and then I think when I was like, because I didn't initially put baseball on there. I initially only had football and basketball, and then later I put hockey because then I actually started watching hockey. That's when I first started watching hockey was during same time, and I picked the Penguins, but I actually was a Penguins fan just because Sidney Crosby and their colors or whatever. Um, but yeah, it was more just to go with the branding, and then also because I do like LeBron a lot. I still do. I thought it would just be easy to tweet about because LeBron's always relevant, and I'm watching LeBron. But then eventually, I did move on to the Bucks because like it's a lot easier for me to talk about the Bucks because that's actually my team, and I always be watching the Bucks. Not as much this year, unfortunately. But yeah, that's why.
Super interesting. I always find it very funny seeing people pick teams because of their colors, especially when it's done seriously. I've always been a homer, as are you, outside of It's Lamar season. But my final question for you, I always like to leave the viewers with some imparting wisdom. So say someone wants to, get on Twitter and make themselves a presence. They want to be like it's Lamar season. What is one piece of advice that you would give to say, something that's really helped you get to where you are with it's Lamar season?
Um, so the way I started my account, well, I did it with trolling, but you don't have to troll. I don't know how effective it will be in today's Twitter age because Twitter 4.5 years ago is a lot different now just because the algorithm has changed a lot ever since Elon Musk bought it. But if you want to get into like sports and stuff, the best way is going to be replying to people. You can't just, I mean, you could make your own tweet, but the best way is going to be replying to people. That way you can make connections, um, whether they're positive or negative. But and then you gotta reply to like Bleacher Report, ESPN, Sports Center, whatever. But then you also gotta be replying to those people. But I would also say, I mean, for me, even though I didn't start it, I do think sometimes you gotta be more authentic. You gotta be more. I mean, you can troll because I still do troll, just not as much. But I do think once you start gaining attraction, you start gaining connections and stuff. I do think you should try to be a little more authentic. Like with me, so I like most like all this stuff I say about Tua, I do believe. Like I'm not going to include last year because last year was a down year, but previous years I do believe when healthy he was a top five QB. And I think some you just got to be confident with that because there will be people like they might be thinking that, but they're not confident. But if they see that, you'll start making connections with those people. And then sometimes that can lead into connections with like other people, um, like even bigger accounts or whatever. And then you can join their community and then you start interacting with them. But yeah, I do think you gotta reply to people. You just gotta reply to whoever. Like you can make your own big tweets. You can try, but to start off, you're probably because people aren't following you. They aren't gonna see it. So I do think it's most important to make connections with people. That's how you're gonna do it.
That's some great insight, both for Twitter and outside the Twitter space in the real world. Mr. Season, I want to thank you very much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. This was fun being able to give some more insight, maybe some other people that know me, people that don't know me. I think it's fun to give some insight and be able to ramble on because, I'm only limited to 240 characters and sometimes like, I can't be rambling on like this, but I thank you for having me on. I appreciate it, man.
Of course. And to all the viewers out there, surprise, surprise, this is the last episode for the regular run of the Sports Perspective. We are hard at work at one last episode, a grand finale, you might say. So make sure to stay on the lookout for that. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, make sure to look at the rest of our episodes. We have 7 other great episodes up right now. And yeah, once again, thank you for joining us. Thank you for watching this episode of The Sports Perspective. Make sure to look out for the rest of our content and leave a comment down below.